Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Wolves Report. The Wolves Report is an independent weekly football podcast where we bring you the latest opinions and hopefully some good news on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Today we're joined by two of our regular pundits. We've got our resident Grump and Mr. Pessimistic himself, not really, Tyler, and Mark Knock as well. Thank you for joining us, guys. Today we're going to talk about the Crystal Palace game. We've taken a week to calm down. Hopefully we process our thoughts on that now better than the WhatsApp group message. Talk about being pressed, the same concerns raising themselves again, the wing-back system, being patient or should we be patient, West Ham, gamesmanship, and hopefully a few questions as well. But before we move on to today, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about before or just briefly mention. Unfortunately, we had the sad news on Friday of the passing of Wolves legend Ron Flowers. England World Cup 1966 winner, died aged 87, also won 3 league titles with Wolves. So everyone at the Wolves Report would like to pay their respects to Ron, Ron's family and his friends. So yeah, a true Wolves legend. Also, one other thing before we get cracking with the show, again, everyone on the Wolves Report would like to say special congratulations to everyone that took part in the Molineux sleep out at Molineux last night, where fans and residents of the city were invited to spend a night sleeping rough in the stand colour stand, and supporting 2 fantastic charities, the Feed Our Pack project and also the Good Shepherd, which is a charity situated opposite Molineux, which provides food and a range of support and services for those in the local community. So yeah, congratulations to everyone last night that as well. Right then, gentlemen, who's going to get me started on Crystal Palace? Now, out of the 2 of you last week, I've got to say, I think Nocky was the most angry at that game. He was absolutely raging. So, Knocker, start us off with Crystal Palace then. Just tell me your initial thoughts on that game and then we'll sort of dissect the game a little bit afterwards. So remember, it is a family show.
Yeah, it didn't look right from minute one. I didn't think it was the game for Trincao. I didn't think he was ever going to do well in that sort of match where you get pressed so high. I don't know. It was almost as if Palace had done their research on us and we hadn't just bothered doing any on them at all. They're new to press us in midfield. They knew that they put Benteke on because they knew he caused Connor Cody problems, which he did. They had a real game plan. They stuck to it. And we just had nothing. We just did exactly what we did against Everton and kind of just hoped it would stick, really. And I think it was a real worry for me. That's probably the most concerned I've been after a Wolves game since Bruno's been there. I mean, the Brentford game was a mess, but it was one of them things. You felt it was just one of them things where they turned up and we didn't. Whereas it felt like tactically we were lost. You know, even when we were getting overrun in midfield and when they were hammering us down the flanks and steaming through us at will, we still weren't adjusting. We weren't making those changes. We were just letting it happen. And real concerns after that one. I think it was an absolute disaster. We never looked like getting back into it. We didn't react after the goal. We didn't react at half time, didn't react in the second half after the goal. It was just a complete sort of surrender, I felt, when the first one went in. And it was all very much based around tactics for me.
Yeah, I'll come to you in a second, Tyler. But I mean, I agree with all of that. I just felt I think we all said in the week before that it would have been a game potentially for Traore. Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We can all say what they've done afterwards, but I think most of us called that we would like Traore in the team because Palace would press us and it would leave space in behind. It didn't look like a game for Trincao, who didn't really do anything. I mean, on the Who Scored app, Hwang and Trincao were both in the worst team of the week in terms of their performances. I think they've scored 5 points something. So to have 2 youth players in there against, I mean, a growing Crystal Palace side, regardless, it's still really poor. Really disappointing.
I think as well, the problem is I've got no problem with the manager picking a team that doesn't work. You've beaten Everton in what was a really good first half performance. So by all means, if you think that's going to work, put it in, but be brave enough to make those adjustments when it clearly isn't working. And that was the biggest concern for me. We just stuck with it for the sake of it with no real science behind it. That was my biggest worry.
Tyler, why did it go so wrong at Palace?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mark. To be honest, I think everything Bruno got right against Everton, he got wrong against Crystal Palace. He was very upfront and open about telling us why he picked the team for Everton, why Trincao was included and what the game plan was. And then at Crystal Palace, like Mark says, there was just none of that. Just made absolutely no sense. I couldn't tell what the tactics was, what we were trying to do with the ball, without the ball. I think I texted you both, didn't I? During the first half, Trincao and Hwang playing. They were that just not in the
Ineffective.
game at all. And it was just crying out for it in a Dharma game. You know, I'm not Dendonka's biggest fan, and again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But against a big, strong, physical team, they're the sort of games he should probably be playing in. He played at Ellen Road, I think, for that reason. Similar to Leeds Palace, sort of were on the front foot, they were pressing, and I was impressed with them, to be honest. But we weren't playing Chelsea away or Liverpool away, and we just surrendered, like Mark said. We let the first goal in, and there was only one way the game was going at that point, and the lack of the ability to change it in game, which we've given Bruno benefit for doing it, Watford, etc. He's done it before. Aston Villa, he did it, of course. I mean, the Adama wing-back sub was just desperation, wasn't it? What was that all about?
Why do you need to keep 5 at the back?
Sense. Just like Mark said, just made no sense. I couldn't work it out. Everything that we'd seen at Everton was concise, was planned, was prepared. And then a week later, or less than a week later, it was just totally the opposite. It was like 11 players, try and get to a result, lads. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, I think the most frustrating thing for me, we've talked about this before, and I think we got away with it at the end at Leeds, even though we conceded with a minute left in injury time, and we certainly got away with murder at Villa, but I'm happy to talk about that all day long. It was how slow we reacted. Wolves got away with it the first half, and I was delighted with the score at half-time because we didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
It was clearly going wrong, and it just wasn't working. We were getting squeezed. Now, this isn't Connor Cody's fault, but if you're playing a team that's pressing you with 3 in midfield and you've got 3 in the back, you're always outnumbered in midfield. So while we're getting squeezed in the middle, we've got a spare man in the middle of a back 3. And it just wasn't. Now, I'm not really sure whether you take Hwang off and you bring Dendonka on just to try and go maybe like for like in the midfield, but do something, change something. It was almost.
Yeah.
What in the first half did any of us see to thought that might work in the second half? I'm going to give it a go. The only positive that it was 0. That was the only positive. I couldn't think of anything else in the first half. So for me, I mean, I was quite angry after the Brentford game, but I think we have to give Brentford credit back then because they did a proper job on Wolves and they were the better team. Now, Palace were definitely the better team, but we could see what was coming, and we had a 45-minute sort of, this is what's going to happen if you carry on, and we didn't change it. Why didn't he change it, Knocker?
I'd have. Sorry to put it, Knocker, but
go on.
I mean, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we talk every week, don't we, as three about formations and tactics, but no one's ever really talked about the 4-3-3. Again, we had 3 centre backs that weren't really. I know it sounds stupid. We weren't getting peppered, but we weren't in the game. So why not match them? And if you're going to go 4 at the back and lose the Cody element to it, match them in midfield, put Dendonka in there, and it's another formation that we probably don't talk about enough, really, with the squad we have. We could be compact, we could put the extra man in midfield, match them up, react to what is happening in the game, and I think that's the biggest thing. There was just no reaction whatsoever. When they scored, there was less of a reaction. We nearly got a penalty. Could have been given either way, let's be honest, but it would have been totally undeserved. And on with Mark, I think the Brentford game was disappointing, but this is the most worrying for me in regards to tactics and what we saw.
Well, says, yep, I would have picked the same team. I mean, often people say, don't change. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So he's gone with that. But what do we know? But he said Bruno had to bail when it clearly wasn't working. I think we all agree on that. And I think we all probably spoke about it at half time on the group chat. We've probably a more fruity approach than we're doing now of how bad it was and how lucky we were. So yeah, I often find with managers that sometimes they just want to see out, don't like to make changes too early. When we got out of jail that first half, and it is a concern. So thanks for your comment. Still with, appreciate that.
I think just on that last thing from me, I think you saying Everton is a prime example, because the first half against Everton, we could have been 3-4 up quite comfortably. Second half, they make a change. They bring Delph on. They switch the way they play. They squeeze us and they release pressure in other areas, and they get themselves back in the game. And they could well have walked away from Molineux with a point. So we sat on this show and we gave Everton credit for that because they made those adjustments. But we just
half time.
Yeah, we didn't do anything. We just came out exactly the same way second half. Did exactly what hadn't worked. I mean, why would you think doing nothing is going to make a change? Because Crystal Palace didn't do anything different because everything they were doing was working. So the goal was always coming. It was coming from the first minute for me. And I thought, I thought getting in at half time was an absolute godsend. I thought fantastic. We can we can sort it out now. We can bring Dendoncker on. I would have took Wang off as well, or Trincao, because I think neither of them were very effective. Let's switch things around, extra body in midfield, stop them from breaking our ranks. But nothing. We did absolutely nothing. And then, we end up losing the game 2-0. And it was a very comfortable 2-0. There was no complaints from me. They were far better than us.
I mean, looking at the stats in the game, looking at the stats in the game, Palace had 60% possession, 13 shots, 6 shots. We had obviously 40% possession, 4 shots, two on target, and 6 corners. And those stats probably flatter Wolves, because I don't recall thinking we're going to score at any point in that game. And you can understand. I mean, with wide players, for me, they're not the kind of position where you can expect them to play well week in, week out. It's not that kind of position. But if both players aren't performing, and then you have no service at all for your striker, then you have to make the change at half time. And I just think sometimes you've got to throw pride out the window. It's not working. You know what? I'd have been delighted. I think I said last week I'd have taken a point at Palace. I really would. Especially after their result at Man City the week before. But it's a worry, boys. I mean, we're going to talk about being patient a little bit later on, in terms of he's only using what he's got in front of it at the moment. Let's welcome my dog to the podcast, who's barking in the garden now, which is great.
Doesn't like the result either, by the sounds of it.
No, he doesn't. He can. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show, Rupert.
I thought that's I was back for a minute.
He's on WM now. I'm sure he'll be loving that. Just bringing in Martin Webb, who's a regular contributor to the show. Afternoon, Martin. Afternoon, lads. Hope you're well. Lars seems to set a more negative away from home. Do you agree? Judging by Leeds and by Palace, you'd have to say so. Yeah, there's almost. I felt this. I know we was at Leeds, Tyler. That there's almost away from home, and even at Villa, we got away with it. There's like an inferiority complex. Like, we're going up to lose, but when I know we're going over our ground, but when you've got the firepower that we have, like, Wolves' strongest bit of the team is their wingers or their attacking players behind. For me, that's the strongest area of the team. Yet we don't use them enough, and it is frustrating. So yeah, Martin, I don't know what you guys think. You agree, Martin, on that, Knocker?
I do, yeah, but I mean, he's got away with it because we've been winning games, haven't we? I mean, we won 3 away games on the spin, nearly won at Leeds as well. So it's worked to a point, but I think you definitely get more eyes on it now that we've put in a performance like that. It definitely raises a few red flags.
Tyler,
I think I've said it probably at least 2 or 3 times on this podcast. We're not going to get away with playing at the levels we're playing at and winning games. And I think Saturday was an example of that. We came up against a team in form, we were a bit naive, and we got what we deserved. And I think you could argue we were lucky against, the Newcastles, the Southamptons of this world, the Aston Villas of this world, where we didn't play great, but we won. But that's not going to happen forever. And I think, this is why I'm probably a little bit more concerned than I was before, because we got the slapping that we were due, I think, really, from not being very good. But to answer his question, the setup, the players are there, the setup's the same. We played, the 2 wingers and the striker, but just never in the game whatsoever. And we weren't in the Leeds game after we scored, so it is concerning.
There's some really good stuff coming through. Again, still with has Bruno made a change before conceding at least one? I mean, obviously that question just come up now and it's live, so I can't look up. But I don't recall us really making any early changes to change. And has there been an injury earlier on? I don't really call. Have we reacted before?
I can remember where it was 0-0 and we were positive with substitutions. And
I think Wolves. Wolves were winning 1-0 and Hwang came on. Podence came on, put the ball in for Hwang and scrambled in. So I think Wolves were already winning. So in terms of a positive sub, we'd seen it when Wolves were winning because he's smelt blood, 1-0 up, gone for the kill and got it. And tactically, that's brilliant. Instead of tucking in, we've gone for it and gone the kill. So yeah, it's credit, but we're quite a few games in now. So we have been a little bit fortunate.
When you look at the subs he made though against the Villa, he puts Podence in the 10, he puts Adama wide, puts Roll through the middle, he stretches them, and even at 2-0 down, we managed to get ourselves back in the game. Why wouldn't you do something similar like that against Palace when you're when the game's getting away from you. We know where Podence's best position is. We know that Adama can hurt anyone in that division, so you stick him on at wing back. I mean, for me, that's either a message to the board that I ain't got enough here, or it's a message to Adama that you're on your way, son. That's the only way I can see any reasoning behind putting him out there.
Yeah, it doesn't. The whole Palace game was painful from start to finish. Now, as one of the guys mentioned, yes, I'd have stuck with the same team because that first half against Everton was good. But did we not get a warning in the second half that as soon as the team presses us, we're in big trouble? I know this is, we may as well go on to this now, talking about being pressed. But anytime we've been pressed, other than the first 3 games, which seem a million miles away now, there was good football, and if anything, it was us doing the pressing. And it was like we haven't. I mean, I get other than Everton, but what I would say about the Everton game is Everton tucked in. It was a proper Benitez Newcastle performance from his old days at Newcastle, tucking in, trying to counter. But they invited Wolves on, perfect for Trincao to play between the lines, and it worked really well. So, what's the solution? How are we going to change this managing being sort of so vulnerable to the press, Tyler?
If you give me Bruno's wages, I'll try and come up with a solution. You know, it's on him, isn't it, ultimately, and his coaching staff. But like you say every week, right, we're just 3 punters who watch Wolves, love Wolves. If we can see it's not working, and we can see it's not right, and a lot of the Wolves fans on social media are saying the same thing, you know, why can't they see it? And it sort of takes me back to the Nuno days. I don't like bringing it up, but again, not seeing the obvious, slow with the substitutions. The pressing game you mentioned, I mean, when we did it, I mean, I remember the Tottenham and Man U game, Coutinho was almost playing as a second striker. He was just right up there, putting them under pressure, winning the ball back, and then we would bang, go, and like you said, that seems light years away now. And again, against Palace, we just seemed happy to let them have the ball. We'll wait for them to make a mistake, but then we were so poor with the ball. And like I said, I genuinely don't know what the game plan or the tactics was, but that press game that you mentioned, I think we all, admittedly, we had no points, but we were all starting to fall in love with at the start of the season. That's long gone, hasn't it? And we see back to retreating and almost waiting for the opposition to give the ball away to make a mistake.
Well, we'll go on to Knocker just after this, but it's almost gone 180, hasn't it? From the team doing the pressing, playing attacking football, probably should have got something at Leicester, definitely should have beat Man United and Spurs. Yeah. And it almost then become, I don't know, it's almost like then it turned into, I mean, Watford was okay, got the job done, can't really complain about that. But since then, what's happened, Knocker? Why has it changed?
I mean, I think he sacrificed performances for results. Because we were in a position where we were playing well, but we just couldn't score a goal, couldn't win a game. Had he stuck with that, I think it would have come round at some point, because you can't have that many opportunities and keep losing football matches. But I don't know. We seem to be set up in a way that we've got 2 very, very good midfielders, but if you press us, you almost remove them completely from the game, and you end up pushing us so deep. And I don't know, we just seem to absolutely panic when a team really press us, and there's no outball. No, I think the problem you've got, Hwang, is absolutely, he's lethal when he comes back in our half. You know, I want him, if he's going to play, he stays in the opposition half and he don't come back, because he's an absolute liability when he crosses the halfway line. But there was nothing to get you out. I mean, when the ball's humped up towards Raul, he's got some big units on him. If he's not holding that ball up, it's coming back at us. And if he does flick it on, Hwang's deep, or Trincao, who was just completely out of the game, there was just nothing. It just kept coming back at us. And that's where, you know, like I said, if you want to play like that, it's absolutely fine, but recognise when it's not working. And I've never understood why managers don't make those changes, because I think you'll get much more appreciation from supporters by recognising that something's not working, rather than just sticking at it for the sake of it. Because it's so frustrating, and Mick McCarthy used to do it as well. Going back to him, he used to. He refused to make those changes. He'd stick with his team. This is what I picked. This is what's going to work. And if it doesn't work, change it. But
infuriating.
I think we need a new system. We need. I mean, we've all spoke about what we'd like in terms of the 4-2-3-1. It's not going to happen. But if we're going to play with 3 at the back the way we are, you can still make that effective. It can still be more of an attacking formation than the way we're playing at the moment, I think. And if we're going to do that, we need a new system where we can switch it up when we are getting pressed and just give us a little bit of relief defensively. Because, you know, I thought at 2-0 we probably got away with that. So we need to be better at breaking that up. We need to be better at coming up with a plan B, because I just don't think we have one at all at the minute. If our initial system doesn't work, it's full panic stations.
Now, is the solution to this being pressed, is it to put an extra man in midfield to make us more solid, or is it to put an extra man in midfield to make us more attacking, to give them something to think about?
I think if you bring in another man in midfield, you do both, don't you? Because you're suddenly going to have a little bit more of the ball. You're going to stop them from breaking through, and it's naturally going to open up positions, because your two attacking players are going to pull slightly wider to try and get into the space and try and get the ball into the corners and get you up the pitch. So I think games like that, you have to play with three in the middle. You just have to. We haven't got the legs with Moutinho and Neves to control a team that are pressing us the way Palace did. So if you bring in a Dendoncker, and I'm with Chris, I'm not Dendonker's biggest fan, but I think there are certain games where he can have a big impact.
It was ready made. I think we all said at Palace, for a team that's going to press us, we knew, like you said, three punters, we knew what was coming at Palace, and we needed legs in there. And like you said, three guys talking about this a week and a half ago, and yes, he didn't change the winning team, but it was glaringly obvious, wasn't it? We knew what Palace were going to do. They'd won at Man City. We knew they were going to press us. But
if you bring Dendoncker on for Hwang, and then you bring Adama on for Trincao, and go with the two up top like we did against Man City a couple of years ago, and we beat them 2-0. You've got the outball, and you've got the pace and the intelligence up front to use it. But Trincao, best one in the world, he's still a young man developing his game. He's not going to get you out of trouble in games like that, whereas Adama can.
Just on the Trincao, I know I'm going off the topics here, but it's an interesting point. There's some articles going about in Spain that made their way to England in the week about Barcelona wanting to recall Trincao. Now, I think Trincao is ridiculously talented. I think he's ideal for an Everton game when a team's going to sit back and then you need to play intricate football and play through the lines. Yes, but if Barcelona come calling and he wants to go back in January, I mean, we were under no obligation at all. Do we look for another partial swap, someone else that might suit our system? Or do we say, well, you pay us and you can have him back? What would you guys do?
It's a dilemma with him, isn't it? I think. I mean, if you boys are talking about going either, 3-5-2, it would have to be. If you go three in the middle, then Trincao doesn't get in the side, does he?
No.
If you're looking at keeping, the three forwards, there's an argument he does get in the side. It's what Mark just said. Depending on what way Bruno wants to go, we'll decide that, won't it? I'm with you, Ryan. He's a very talented footballer. You can see that. Does he impact enough games enough at the time? I'm not convinced he does. But 20, 21-year-old overseas player used to playing in Spain, coming into the Premier League, it's very different, and you need time to that. Look how long it took Neto, for example, to adapt to it and what we see from him now. So I wouldn't want to dismiss him and say, you're back. But if you are going sort of 3-5-2, 4-3-3, there's an argument he might not get in the side, especially when Neto does return, hopefully in January. They're big questions, aren't they? They are big questions that need to be answered ultimately.
I don't see Wolves doing 5-3-2 anytime soon with the talent they have. I don't think I think that's going even further away from the philosophy the manager wants to implement. But I know this next section we're talking about, we are seeing the same concerns, the same lack of legs in midfield, the same sort of, I'm going to say real lack of pace at centre-back, because the defence has actually not been too bad this year. But, I mean, Sace and Cody for the goal, though, But you know what? I'm not going to be overly critical of those two players, because I think they've actually done pretty well recently. Can't really fault them. But the whole Palace game, it was a stinker from shirts 1 to 11. I mean, with the exception of probably Sarr. I mean, who comes away with any credit from that game? It was a stinker. But as we're on to the next section, it is the same concerns, isn't it? We're seeing Raul isolated. We're seeing two wide players. The wide players just having no impact. I mean, I like Hwang. I like people that score goals. But if Hwang hadn't scored those goals, all right, what would have been his contribution? He works hard. Yeah, he's a proper team player. And you know what? He's been getting in goal-scoring positions. And I know he scored the goals, but guys, I think we need more from him still.
Yeah, I'd agree entirely. I think we'll sign him because he's cheap. And that's the reality of where we are as a club at the moment. So I do think we'll sign him, but I'm very much with you. I can't decide if he's good or not. I generally can't. I can't decide whether he just scores goals, which in itself is the most difficult thing in the game to do. But there's so many occasions. I mean, you look against Villa, he puts McGinn through for the second goal. There's so many times where he puts us in trouble, and I think there's stuff we can work with there because he is clearly a talented player. He has got a burst of pace. He has got a bit of skill. But I think, for me, if he stopped scoring goals, he'd be absolutely worthless in that team. I just don't think he would add anything. He's not. He's very much, I'm going to turn, I'm going to run forward as fast as I can and see if I get into a goal scoring area. And he did make a couple of good runs for the Newcastle game when he scored them 2 goals. And that's great. But I've not seen enough of that from him at this point to think that's going to be consistent from him. I just think he's. Yeah, he'll absolutely sign, but I do have very, very large concerns that he's not going to be our goal scoring remedy going forward. I really don't think he will.
Well, I think for the money concerned, and it is a deal, and Wolves love a bargain. I think in the current climate, from what we've got, I think we have to sign him, to be honest. In terms of value for money, I think if someone's averaging that, I'm sure he'll continue this goal average up throughout the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got near 10 goals. And you know what? For that kind of money, I think that's a reasonable return. But in terms of our style of play, I think we need a little bit more from him, to be honest.
So, if can I just ask you on that, right? If we've got a fully fit squad, does he come in over Neto, Adama, Podence? Does he get in ahead of them for you?
No. I'm
not saying don't sign him because I'm with you. I think value for money. Yeah, absolutely, we'll get him signed up, and it's a good piece of business in that sense. But I do think long term, I don't see him getting in the team.
No, me neither. I don't see him getting in the team. I like what he brings. I think we are really lacking in terms of depth, in terms of a number 9 as well. And I know he played at front of Villa and he wasn't great, but who else? Fabio is nowhere near ready. We don't know if he'll be ready. I just think we're so short of numbers. If Trincao goes as well, it's just a concern how thin on the ground, aren't we? But as you're saying, go on digress then. But in terms of the way forward, as Martin says here, 4-2-3-1 all the day long. For me, that's the ambition. It has to be. We have to go forward and back the manager to play that, and then we can get more out of these players. Does he get in that system? No. Also, still with us says don't let the. It's what we've been teased. It's what he won the league on. Or it was more of a 4-2-4 kind, 4-2-1-3 kind of formation at Benfica when he won the league. But it's a tough one, and that sort of rolls us in nicely to games like at Palace, the wing-back setup, and being patient will sort of bring these into sort of one thing. Now, as it stands, this moment in time, there's not really a lot we can do in terms of changing the shape, the formation, maybe a little bit of the style. So is it about us now being patient until January, until he's backed, to get 1 or 2 players to allow us to play 4 at the back? Or is this it for the foreseeable future? And if that's the case, what was the point of bringing an attacking manager in? Tyler?
I can't have this on a Saturday. It's like, this is harder than being at work. This is.
It's because you're normally asleep at work.
Yeah, I'm just going to be consistent with what I've said since the start of the season. For me, we're better suited, in my opinion, and I can only give you my opinion, to play the 4-2-3-1. I think I said after the Everton game, I'm happy to play a 3 at the back if it's like it is against Everton, where Semedo and Aït-Nouri were basically wingers, and we were giving Everton more to think about than we had to worry about. So I can live with that as well. The challenge is that, like you said, Ryan, there are more questions than answers at the moment. You've just said Bruno's an attacking coach. Apart from those first 3 games, I haven't seen any of that.
First half at Everton.
Yes. But Everton were as poor against us as we were as bad at Palace as well, in my opinion.
Fair.
So like you said, we changed the manager. That must have been with the decision in mind to make us a bit more attractive on the eye, because I think we all agreed the end for Nuno was depressing almost. We didn't want to really watch Wolves anymore, did we, unfortunately? So what are we doing here? Who's to say in January, and I know Michael was talking about Wolves and transfer windows, but who's to say in January we're going to buy 2 or 3 players? We haven't strengthened in the last few windows, so who's to say we're going to do that? They'll buy Hwang, they'll make out that's one signing, but to me it isn't. He's already here, he's part of the team, he's part of the squad. For things to change, I think for him to get what he wants, we need a minimum of 3 players. We need the box-to-box midfielder. We probably need a commanding, athletic, pacey centre-back to come in if we're ever going to go to a back 4. And all the front players we talk about as being our strength, are they that good? I know.
I think so.
Thought this about a lot last season. the stats wouldn't back it up, would they? You know, none of them score enough goals apart from Frank this season. Neto, Podence, Adama, they don't score enough goals.
Well, let me just jump in there a second. What I would say about last season, though, and this is Wolves' own fault for having a paper-thin, wafer-thin squad, is that when we took Raul out of that team, you're taking away the feed, someone to put those assists in, and someone also to feed. I mean, Adama and Raul's relationship 2 years ago was incredible. It was one of the best statistical relationships in the Premier League. Those two were unbelievable together. Neto was flying before it was at the start of last season, before he got injured, and his relationship was building as well. But then you take Raul out of the team, and you're putting in Silva. Now that's not Silva's fault. And then we had, I don't even want to mention his name, what was it? El Mannequin came in.
Same, Ryan.
Yeah,
we're only scoring or averaging a goal a game. It's not enough. We don't score enough goals. We don't ever score 3 or 4 in a game.
Would you not agree that is that not the system though? Because at the start, our XG, and you know, you make your own luck. But those first 3 games, Wolves were desperately unlucky. And you know, you got to take your chances you have. But that level of performance they're putting in against some of the best teams in the country, some teams playing regular European football, Wolves were better than them playing that style of football. I think the manager got frightened and he was like, right, I can't face another loss, 4 losses on the bounce. I've got to step back, lose some of the style and win a game. And we haven't been able to get away from that since. So for me, I think it's all about style. I think the personnel we've got in that team and squad up front, I think can hurt anybody. It's the middle where we're very immobile and probably one short centre back short or a fit Willy Bolly. I mean, what's happened to Willy Bolly?
Again, right? If we all know this and we can see it and we talk about it every week, then why can't the powers that be see it? You know, we're crying out for a couple of new players, aren't we? We're crying out for it. But on with Mark, I wouldn't be confident of making signings in January.
Okay. I think you're both right to a point. The system has a bit of luck as well, because they haven't dropped for us, have they? But going back to your point about when Raul was injured, where was the contingency for Raul to be injured? Why were we so light up front? I mean, all right, we bought Silva in.
Well, that was Patrick Catrone, wasn't it, as well?
Well, yeah, but with the best will in the world, Patrick Catrone, you could see a mile away. You could play him every game of the season and get you 4 goals as an absolute max. Now, we can see that sitting in the stand, so there's no way they couldn't see it, you know, the powers that be. And the same with Silva. You know, Silva's developing, he's learning. We were always going to be 1 injury away from an absolute catastrophic failure last season because we didn't have the players in to support a loss of a number 9. And there's this huge belief through Molyneux's Twitter, really, that we're going to make a couple of big signings at Christmas. We're not going to make any big signings at Christmas. I'm absolutely convinced of that. I think if Mosquera's anywhere near fitness, I think they will risk losing the African Cup of Nations because they'll be back during the transfer window in theory. If Mosquera's anywhere near, we won't do anything. I'm pretty convinced of that. There might be a couple of players coming for the development squad. As Chris rightly said, Hwang will sign. Other than that, if we're not going to sign them in the summer, we're not going to sign them at Christmas when they're going to be more expensive because we work within a budget now and it's a very, very low budget. So for me, no, I don't think anything will change. I think this is us for the season now.
So if that is the case, Knocker, and I hope you're wrong, with all the best intentions and respect, I hope you're wrong. If that's the case, then what was the point of bringing in an attacking manager? What was the point? Because you're going to let a guy who's won a league title in a European league fall flat on his face and not give him. I mean, you're giving him a stick in a sword fight. So what chances you got? You've got to back him somehow. And you know what? Hwang will be some shrewd business. Squad player for me when everyone's fit. Don't think we can turn him down. He's our top scorer. Was it 12, 14 million? Have to sign him for that money. Has to be done. So
you are right. You're absolutely right. But in terms of the manager, how many candidates do you actually think were interviewed for that job?
Well, this is a really good question, actually. Someone raised this. Someone raised this on Twitter. It was Richard Holmes, and he took it over to Villa 3-2. He took it over to he took it over to Villa, getting rid of their manager, and then having a look for who's around and who they wanted, and they wanted Gerrard. And he basically suggested, did we have a look round, or was it always Bruno Lage's job? Was it always?
It was always Bruno. Always Bruno. I mean, there's pluses and minuses with having been part of the Mendes merry-go-round, isn't there? And I think We've had players like Ruben Neves. We've had some absolutely phenomenal talent come through. But in terms of these sort of decisions, Wolves would never be in for a Steven Gerrard. He'd never even be on the radar for us. It was always going to be Bruno Lage, and I would be very surprised if anyone else was even interviewed for that position, because this is how we operate now. So yes, we haven't given him the tools, but if it doesn't go right, they'll get rid of him, and there'll be another Portuguese manager coming to fill his boots. That's just the way we work at the moment.
But I hope you're wrong, Knocker. I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too. I hope I'm wrong as well. I'd love to come on here and eat some humble pie, but I just don't see it. I just think if you look historically at where we are in terms of our windows, you look at how we operate, we're not going to go out there and say is 20 million for a centre half, because how much are we going to have to spend for a centre half that actually improves us? If we're going to buy Wang for 14 million quid, for me, that's our budget wiped out, unless we sell Adama. If we sell Adama, potentially it opens up a little bit more in the way of funds, but I just don't see it. I think this will pretty much be what we have, unless something really drops in the doorstep. But the talk of Renato Sanchez, don't see it at all. Really
I'm going to bring in a comment from Jay Walters that brings us on nicely. That's sort of in the slipstream of what you said there. Would you be happy if Traore goes in January, but it means we would bring in Botman and Sanchez? I mean, I know we look at Knocker's face. He's trying to hold the tears back. Bloke's broken. I mean, I love it. In terms of benefiting the football club, that would be amazing. For me, if Adama went, but we just got Sanchez, I think that improves Wolves massively. It gives a whole Wolves, whole team, a whole dynamic. You've got someone in midfield that's mobile, that can travel with the ball, that can tackle, that can pass. There's almost an all-round midfielder. I mean, I think the ship has sailed on that, and I think we've missed out. I'm not 100% whether Wolves were genuinely in, or it was something to stoke the fire on the transfer, either the transfer window deadline. I don't know. I would absolutely love it. Would I take Adama going for Sanchez to come in, Jay? Just Sanchez? Yeah, I absolutely would, boys.
All day long. I'm not going to let Knocker speak on this one, because you know how he feels. I love Adama. I love him. He's unique. He gets me off the seat. I love the guy. But if you're bringing in two top quality players like that, for an Adama that isn't guaranteed to start in our team, isn't playing at the moment, probably doesn't want to be at the long term. It's a decision you've got to do from a business perspective, but a footballing one as well. You talked about transfers, Knocker, and I think, me and you were quite cynical when it comes to Wolves and transfer windows, but with Neto and potentially Johnny to return in the new year as well, it'll be the old, they're like new signings. And, there are another two players that make us better. They do. Johnny makes us better. Neto makes us better. Add Twang to that. I'm with you, Knocker. I think that could be it for me. But to answer that question for me, all day long. But there's got to be other centre midfielders out there. It doesn't have to be Renato Sanchez. You're telling me there's no centre midfielders out there that can run from one box to another?
No, but that's who we want now, Tyler. We've seen him dominate the European Championships. We've seen him run round.
We were linked with every window.
Every single Portuguese player.
Just going on to a comment from Martin Webb. Botman has been out for the last 7 games with a groin injury. So I think he's responding to Jay. So I can't see that happening. Sanchez would be great for us, but Lille is still in the Champions League, so that may scupper any deal. I'd read another translated article that Lille are really struggling financially, and they need to sell 2 or 3 of their best players, and that includes Sanchez, because it's all well and good being in the Champions League, but if you're millions and millions in debt, you need to sell regardless, because they're not going to win the Champions League, with all due respect. Love it if they did now, by the way, and that clip was out there. But if a team needs to sell, they need to sell. Now, if it meant Adama going and him coming in, then fantastic. I want to believe that Sanchez would join Wolves to partner up with his Portuguese buddies in midfield. Him and Neves in midfield. Come on, boys. Come on.
I think
Podence in the 10 in front of them.
As well. It doesn't have to be these two, does it? Again, you're telling me there's no other centre-back out there that would improve our squad for 15, 20 million. Of course there is. We need to probably widen the network a little bit. Like Mark said about the Mendes, there's other players we should be looking at as a football club. Just
a question though, boys. If, let's say, we absolutely pull off the miracle and Sanchez joins Wolves, let's say he did, does that mean then Wolves could play at the 4 at the back because of what he can do in a 2-man midfield?
I think it does, because you could leave potentially Neves slightly deeper to support your back line. But I'm kind of with you on this one. I think we've missed the boat on both of these because I think with the performances of Renato Sanchez lately, I think, would he come to Wolves? Yeah, I absolutely think he would, as long as a Liverpool, an Arsenal, a Spurs, or someone like that doesn't come in for him, in which case it's pretty much a no-brainer, isn't it? But with that previous question, I would sell Adama now. As much as I love him, he's not going to sign a new deal. He's clearly not going to play under Lage where we stand at the moment. So you're kind of carrying a £30 million piggy bank around with you, aren't you? That he's just not going to play for us. So if we could get those two players in, I absolutely would. I do agree we need to broaden our horizons in terms of who we bring in. But again, I don't see that happening because I think we are very much linked into the Mendes merry-go-round. So for me, if those two players, any chance we can get those deals done, absolutely do it. But I think we've missed the boat on that now. I really do.
Just going to jump on a couple of comments. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions, by the way. You can comment via YouTube, as some of the guys are doing, and also Facebook as well. Or if you want to drop the original tweet on Twitter, a response, we'll read out those as many as we can. Martin, again, mentioned 4-3-3. Sanchez was in there. That will give us more legs to do that. That's definitely a possibility. I think I would say, though, if we went to a 4 at the back, I genuinely believe that I'd like to see Podence in the 10, like what he did at Villa. I also think Trincao could play as a 10, even Neto as well. I think our options for playing those three in behind and having a back four make Wolves such a different beast. A little bit of support for Hwang. Still with us says England is an adjustment for Hwang too. Just happens to be burying the goals, and that's a fair comment. You know, what I mean, he doesn't play many goals. I mean, the hardest thing and the most expensive quality to pay for in football is scoring goals. And you know what? He might not be playing great, but he's scoring goals. And if he carries on this rate at the end of the season, yeah, we'll take a bit of that. Great point there. Thank you for your comment. Who else we got? Let's go for some more comments. Martin again, who's smashing us with stuff today. I think Lage is worried about the Christmas period as he's trying to pick up as many points as he can. Say some bolly off the African Cup of Nations. We could have a really bad month and soon be back in the. So yeah, I mean, it's a worry, isn't it? With these players going away, we're going to miss some Christmas fixtures. I mean, at one point, did we have 2 goalies on the bench a couple of weeks ago? Did that happen again last week? Two keepers on the bench.
I think there's a bit of what Mark said about almost
the message, isn't there?
To people with that one, but. He's there. I think the points return at the moment. We can't moan about, can we? We can moan about styles, we can moan about transfers, but we can't really moan about the number of points on the board. But we haven't really played anyone in December. Well, Tottenham and Man U, but December's the test, isn't it? Liverpool, Chelsea,
massive.
Arsenal, United. It makes these games huge. The Norwich one, the Burnley one. If you get 6 points out of those two, you're still on 22 points. You're still well on track to do well. So I think we just need to do what that guy said and accumulate the points while we can. December's going to be a rocky month. I think we can all see that. But you'll always get the surprise points that you're not expecting as well. So no need to be worried from that perspective. I just think that chap is spot on. We're just trying to get points in while we can. Just
going on to January and getting through as many of these comments as well. Dave Lester, a chap I know very well. Who could Wolves realistically sign in the January window to solve the attacking midfield options that we have been missing? Now, what I would say to that is, I think we've just covered it then briefly, that is if Wolves do go to a back 4, then I want to see Podence in the 10 or Neto in the 10 if he's back, or Trincao. I think Wolves have got the players an attacking midfielder there. I think they've got that number 10 in the squad, assuming that's what you mean, and you don't mean like a ball carrying 8. And if that's the case, that will probably be Sanchez. So I think Wolves have got them options in the 10 already. But again, and we've talked about it, and people must be sick to death of us talking about going to 4 at the back. Because as you said, Tyler, I think, and you said it as well, Knocker, the Everton performance with Wingbacks, that's what I want to see. I want to see my Wingbacks hype the pitch. And I'm happy Wingbacks then. But again, and for much of it recently, it's not been like that. And this is why I think the change, I think it'll almost be forced upon the manager, because keep playing like we do at Palace in that system and being pressed, there's no points coming anywhere soon. And like you said, it's a horrible month ahead. Let me just go through a few more of these comments before we move on to the West Ham game, which will be an interesting encounter. Mention that we might call Sanderson. Now, I know Sanderson is doing really well at Blues. He's, I think the Blues fans like him that I've spoke to. Athletic, strong, quick. but and no disrespect to the Championship, but playing as a right centre back, I think the Blues play with Wingbacks at the moment. I think they do, and moving to a potentially doing that in the Premier League, it's a massive step up. Again, I would be delighted to be wrong, and if he comes in and did a job, fantastic. I just think the best thing for Sanderson at the moment might be to carry on his development at Blues. I think he did well at Sunderland. He's doing well at Blues. Let's just keep it steady before potentially ruining his season as well. And I would say the same with Gibbs White as well. To be honest, he's getting plenty of football. Let's keep him at Sheffield United. You're laughing at me.
You nearly went through a whole podcast without mentioning Morgan Gibbs White. I was going to ask Dave Lester's question by saying that could be our attacking centre midfielder.
Over Pedence or a Trincao? Come on, son. Behave yourself.
But tongue in cheek, like Knocker said, we'll probably recall him in January and he'll be like a new signing as well. Typical Wolves way of doing things.
Yeah, well, I can see the pessimism is strong on the show today, Tyler. So, and that's what you're on for. So
you wouldn't have it anyway.
No, I wouldn't. That's what you're here for. Any more comments? Okay. Thank you to everyone for your comments and your questions. I want to briefly talk about the West Ham game. Actually, no, I want to talk about gamesmanship. Knocker, you messaged me really angry in the week. You said, I need to talk about this, so I want you to take over this part now. Tell me about gamesmanship. Tell me about Palace accusing us of doing things. Tell us about their players. Knocker, keep it clean.
No, there was a lot of comments around our players hitting the deck easy against Crystal Palace. And I think when you look at the booking Moutinho picks up in the first half, it is definitely not us who are flying out them dark arts at the minute. But I'm all for it. We spoke about it before. I think we've been too nice too long. And I think we need a little bit of steel and a little bit of nastiness in our team. Now, I think Jota was quite good at it. He used to get a few little kicks in, and if he felt a little knock, he'd hit the deck and he'd get back up and give you a little bang afterwards. And I think that we've been lacking that for quite a while now. And it's getting to teams and it's winding teams up. And I think it's something we need to keep doing. But I think we need to do it a little bit cleverer than we are at the minute. Because everyone's doing it to us. You look at Brentford; they absolutely. I mean, that was a masterclass. I mean, it was so angry. But again, it's up to us to deal with how a team play. We don't get to decide. We get to criticise their style or what they do. I thought Burnley were bad under Dyche, but that Brentford one was. I've never seen anything. I mean, changing the gloves, keepers' gloves. People were not what. I mean, it was. But it's about points, isn't it? It's all about points. When you look at Brentford now, they fell off a cliff, haven't they? But they've got points in the bank. Whereas, we're trying to adopt a system now that's not really working for us. There's been opportunities where maybe we haven't took advantage. I mean, the penalty that was disallowed, could he keep going and jump into the area? That's what other teams are doing at the minute. So I think we need to be a little bit smarter at doing it. But there's, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, to be totally honest, especially if everyone else is doing it.
Well, that's the problem, and it feels. You want to sort of get snobby about your football club. Oh, I don't want my players doing this or doing that. But the problem is the Premier League is a brutal, ruthless area. And if everyone else is getting a little piece of action doing that and making the most, then unfortunately we have to get on board. Until the Premier League clamp down and change rules of that, then we have to get on board. Whether it's winning the free kicks, whether it's being clever with time management late in the game, we have to get on board. What do you think, Tyler?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. As much as Knocker loves it, I hate it. Whether it's Wolves, whether it's West Brom doing it, I hate it. If it meant us seeing a game out or not do it, you're going to want. I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle, and I think I wrote a couple of things down. I think it's linked to what you guys are talking about, but probably slightly different in the fact that I think the stat was that a 90-minute football game, the ball is in play for less than an hour. And that all comes down to me. The referee just has no control. I was watching the Arsenal-Leicester game, the Leicester-Arsenal game, and the Arsenal keeper that had a worldie, don't get me wrong, a couple of times he took over a minute to take a goal kick or a free kick. Now, for me, that's in-game management. Arsenal are 2-0 up, he's killing the game, but I'm spending a lot of money to go and watch this. The Premier League is a brand, and tickets, 50 quid to go to the Tottenham game. The ball's not in play enough, and it all boils down to the same thing. And I just can't stand it. Like, there's difference between like a Zaha, going down trying to win a penalty, but the stuff like you said, Brentford are up to and Burnley are up to, the referee has to control that game of football, and he can stamp it out straight away. Keeper's running from one side of the box to the other side to take a goal kick. Sarr does it. It takes too long to recycle the ball back into play. The only person that can stop it is the ref, but because they're not strong enough to deal with it and they don't want to give yellow cards, they don't want to send people off for time wasted, it's become a part of the game, and I, from a personal level, can't stand it. So
you're right. You are right, Si. And to clarify, I don't like it, but I think we are very naive if we think it's something we can just not do and get away with. I mean, you look at Leeds. If we're smarter at Leeds, if we're a little bit more savvy, we win the game 1-0. We don't get ourselves into a position where we're giving a penalty away in the 94th minute. And it's those little tweaks that make a difference. I don't like doing it. And if we could eradicate it from the game, I'd absolutely do it in a heartbeat. But you're never going to. This is a part of the game now. So we've got to be smart and we've got to be involved in it.
The Jota stuff you mentioned, I'm all for. Give him a bit of a niggle. Give a foul away if you have to. When Lingard ran through our whole team and we let him score, take him down on the halfway line and get a booking. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying those elements of it, because they are part of the game. It's when a goalkeeper's taken over a minute to recycle the ball and get it back. That, for me, is just not on. When people are spending money and it's a brand and it's meant to be entertainment, we only go to football, boys, to be entertained, don't we? Yeah, we want our team to win. So you couldn't watch that every week, boys, could you? Could you watch the Burnley a couple of years ago, Leicester, that came and stank the place out? Could you watch that every week?
So were you entertained for 79 minutes against Villa?
Awful down to our performance. That wasn't gamesmanship. I remember.
Yeah, but you're going to a game. You're going to a game
boys.
to be entertained, which is fine. I completely agree with that. At the end of the day, this is about points. This is about winning football matches. The 79 minutes against Villa, we were atrocious. 15 minutes, we were Real Madrid and we win the game. That's the difference. It is about getting points. So it is about performances, but your performance. It's not, but I'm making the point of performances that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you've got the points, your performances, your entertainment factor, it's all about winning football matches.
Right, boys, I'm going to draw on the line underneath that bit. I think great debate. And it's really good.
I'll set you offline in a minute, son. You carry on.
Boys, we've got 8 minutes left and I want to get through some more stuff, but that's really good the way it's flowed there with you guys. I want to go through a couple of the Twitter comments. We can't get the Twitter comments on the screen at the moment. I think that's something that the provider's trying to sort out. But Ted, a regular contributor to the show, he talked about earlier on what can we do to in terms of counter-attack the opposition's press. I think we covered that earlier on, but thank you for your comments and your contribution as always. Ted, thank you. He said also opinions are split on Trincao. What are the panel's view on him? Also, what would you do with Adama? I think we've covered Adama. I mean, it's split. If we sold it, if it meant getting serious cash for Adama to bring in someone of Sanchez's quality, I think we have to take that step forward. I love Adama. I love what he does. I love the way the noise in the stand, the feel when he gets the ball, especially away from home when he picks up and does people. It's fantastic. But Trincao's a tricky one for me. With how limited our options are, I don't want to see him go back in January. Especially, I don't want to be relying and put the pressure on Neto either, boys. Just quickly tell me what you think about that in terms of returning him.
If they're going to, I wouldn't return him now because I think at his age he's developing, and if there's a chance we could sign him and it doesn't affect the budget.
That deal's in place, isn't it? So it's up to us.
I'll be getting him signed, but I think if they come in and offer us 6 or 7 million to give him back, I think we'll give him back.
That'd be madness if they did. Please, can we have our home player back? Here's 6 million. Tyler, quickly.
Everything Knocker's just said. I'd keep him, but I don't think Wolves will turn money away to send him back.
Okay.
Which will be a shame, but I think that's the way they operate, isn't it?
Quick question from Paul Nichols. Thank you for your question, Paul. Who and what areas of concern for the January window, ins and outs? Right, guys, if you had to sell one player in January, who would it be?
For me, Adama, because he's just not going to play. So if he can bring in 2 or 3 players as a result of selling him, I think we're at the position now where we've got no choice.
Tyler?
Yeah, exactly the same. Sell Adama and look to bring in ideally 2 players to help bolster what's a lean squad.
Guys, right then. don't want to talk about this, but we've got West Ham next, and they've just beat Liverpool, and deservedly so. West Ham look like, I mean, you've got to give credit to Moyes. West Ham look like on another planet compared to they were 2 years ago. I remember what they did to us at Molineux last year. That was not pretty. I didn't enjoy that. Luckily, they don't have Jesse Lingard this time. But boys, for Saturday, what are we going to do? Tyler, tell me your team and how we're going to cope with West Ham on Saturday.
Yeah, I will. Firstly, I think West Ham remind me of what we were a couple of years ago. I see a similar, just the shackles off, they try and score goals, they play good football, and I genuinely enjoy watching them. I thought they were great against Liverpool. I'd probably be looking. I think they're quite a big, strong physical side again. Antonio against our back three gives me sleepless nights, to be honest. I don't see what other options we've got but playing those. I'm playing Armour, but whether the manager does. To answer that question, yes. I think I've said again since week one, he comes in every week for me. Still our best centre back. I think I prefer to see him on that side than Sace. Wingbacks are going to be the same. We haven't really got many options to change it in centre midfield. Have we then Donker potentially? They're strong in that area with Rice and Souček, isn't it? And I'd probably play Adama, Hwang and Raul as the three forwards, but they're a team in form. We're not at the moment after the Palace game. But it will be the Wolves thing to go and beat them, wouldn't it, and lose at Norwich. So, nothing surprises me with Wolves.
We'll take that. It's a simple but great question from Steve. I mean, I think we've all been advocates of Bolly on here for a while, but the problem is Bolly like the Bolly of old. Now, the performance against Spurs in the Cup, I thought Bolly was really good that night. I thought he played. Yeah, I thought he played quite well. I thought he did well. I know we had a slip up for the second goal when we pressed randomly high in the middle of a goal, but I thought Bolly did well. I'd bring him in to. He
has to play, surely.
Yeah,
he has to play. How's he not getting in the side at the moment?
I feel like. Well,
how's he not?
What with the back three at Palace and for what Sace and Cody did for that goal, then I would say then absolutely has to. But what have we missed before? Because what's different? What's changed? Why hasn't Bolly been in this team? And how is Sace been keeping him out? Knocker, tell me your team for West Ham, and if you're starting Willy Bolly.
I would be starting Willy Bolly, but I think it'll be exactly the same as we were against Palace. I don't think we'll change it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see any change. I think he'll stick with what worked in the first half against Everton. For me, I'll be bringing Bolly in all day long. I'll be bringing Bolly in, very similar to what Chris said. Bolly in, Adama in, try and give us something to break, give them something to worry about, pin the wing-backs back a little bit by stretching play. But I'm 90% sure we'll go very similar, if not exactly the same as he did against Everton. And the worry for me is Antonio. He's such a unit, and he's gonna link right into Cody. He's gonna back into him. And I'm not digging out Connor Cody because I've been impressed with him this season. I think every centre half in the world struggles with Antonio at the minute because he's such a difficult player to manage. I just think they're going to cause us so many problems. It could be a really messy game.
I mean, looking at West Ham's midfield, as you said, Tyler, it's probably going to be Souček and Rice. There's two guys there. I think Rice is 6'2". Souček, I think, 6'4". Some big boys there. Neves is 5'11", and Martinez's just there. But that's a monster mismatch. So if we are sticking with the same system, which is obviously going to be three at the back, there's no way of changing that now. Surely Dendoncker has to come in. Now, he might not be everyone's cup of tea, but in terms of physicality and legs, we'll get battered in that midfield area, won't we?
Yeah.
Surely there's a case. I mean, especially with the performance last week, and it's not. I don't blame Neves or Martinez for last week, but they just got dominated 3-on-2 in a professional game. You're just going to lose out. And they got absolutely hammered. So, sure. I mean, West Ham play with a go on minute and a half, mate.
I think whoever plays in there, being brutally honest, will get battered. Like I said, Dendoncker does a job, but he's not good enough as a Premier League centre midfielder. So then it comes back to, I know I haven't got long enough to talk about it, but three centre-backs looking after one striker doesn't make sense, does it?
No, makes no sense.
Bolly and Kilman as two to have Antonio and then put the extra man in there. That's my opinion.
Right. Knocker,
I don't get paid millions.
Knocker, give me your score prediction and your first scorer, please.
Well, my head says 3-0 West Ham, but I'll go with my heart, and I think we'll go for a 1-1 draw. Jimenez.
Now, this is the bit of the show I'm really looking forward to. He's asking Tyler his prediction for the weekend. So whatever this is, it can't be this bad. Tyler, give me your first scorer and your score prediction. You've got 30 seconds, mate, and I've got to get on as well. Go.
2-1 to Wolves, Raoul.
Nice. I'm going to say 1-0 Wolves. Adama coming back in team and score the winner. And that is going to be the time for the end of the show. He loves a 1-0 against West Ham. Remember, boys. Thank you so much for watching this episode 12 Saturday edition of the Wolves Report. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. Thank you to Mark Knock, Chris Tyler. And I've been your host, Ryan Esther. Up the Wolves.